Oh dear, that's a costly mistake.
What? Distraction is one of the leading causes of road traffic accidents, and yet most people don't like to admit it. Around 20% of road traffic accidents are caused by being distracted, and the most common cause of those is being on your phone. Being on your phone is quite rightly punished very heavily by the courts with 6 points, usually with fines and costs and a victim surcharge. And as many people find out the hard way, if you've already got 6 points on your driving license, another 6 points for your offence of using your phone whilst driving, which is pretty clear cut these days, is going to tip you up to 12 points, which many of you might be familiar with the phrase totting and a totting ban. If you reach 12 points on your driving licence, you are going to be banned for a minimum period of 6 months unless the court can find, through your representations, exceptional hardship. And that is what it sounds like, exceptional hardship. And that must be where someone else is going to suffer at the expense of you losing your driving licence for a period of 6 months. And that is not as easy as it sounds to show. It has to be something that is very serious and has a very real consequence on somebody else. Not just that it's going to cost you more money, not just that it's going to be inconvenient to you, not even if it means that you're going to lose your job, unless, of course, that is absolutely going to impact children, elderly people, or anyone else that depends on you financially if you lose that job because of losing your driving license. But not only that, I mean, we don't like to... I was having a conversation this morning with Cycling Mikey, whose video that I put at the beginning of this clip. I'll link that video in the description below. We had an interesting chat on messaging this morning, and that is that he and I would prefer that we provide you with positive reinforcement and positive education as to why these things are so bad, rather than the negative ones. But the reality is so many people don't listen to the positive ones and only really react to the negative ones, i.e. if you do this, you will get 6 points, you may risk a ban, and so on. Or in some cases where drivers get reported and go on a driver awareness course, they are shown some fairly horrendous material that will show and prove to you just how bad it can be. Because speeding is also another cause of collisions, and one of the causes of fatal collisions. One of the most common causes of a fatality is the speed element of driving, but one of the most common, around 20% or so, causes of those accidents in the first place is being distracted, and a leading one of those is being on your phone. And as a barrister, in my early part of practice, we do what we call infant settlement hearings. They are hearings at which we must attend court as counsel because a child has been injured or killed, and compensation cannot be agreed and awarded unless counsel have put their respective opinions into court and the court's made a decision. So depending on what side of the argument you fall, you may think of it as the better side or the worst side. There's no positive side to this, really. If you are counsel arguing for more compensation for that child, then you are then in that unenviable position of arguing why it is so bad. If you're on the opposite side of that, you may be asked to argue why it shouldn't be quite so much, which is a difficult argument to make. In the ones that I've been at, generally there is some form of agreement between counsel, not to the extent that they are going against their client's best interests and so on. That's not what I mean. What I mean is some sensible conversation between counsel before going into court, so that everyone understands that this is not a hugely adversarial area. These compensation amounts are generally within boundaries, and it's a formal conversation with the court. And interestingly enough, some studies show that Leeds, Bristolians and Welsh drivers are the most distracted behind the wheel, blaming this on accidents that they've had. i.e. Blaming the distraction for the accident. Leads taking the lead, pun intended, with 53% of drivers saying that the cause of accidents are being distracted at the wheel, and 48 and 48 respectively for Bristolian drivers and Welsh drivers. But that's not to say that drivers around the country are equally distracted. So I would urge you, if not for the positive aspects of keeping the roads safe and staying off your phones, it's sort of the carrot and the stick. The carrot being you can make the roads safer if you don't use your phone and have any other distractions while driving. The stick being if you get caught by the increasing number of citizen journalists, or vigilante journalists, as some people tend to refer to them because they're not happy with what they're doing. You may get caught, filmed, prosecuted, and 6 points on your driving license, resulting, as the lady did in the outset of this clip, with a driving ban for 6 months. I don't know the reason, but I can guess that the most likely reason is a totting ban for this lady at the beginning of this clip. So you may think that it's perfectly innocent, sitting in a queue of traffic, looking at your phone, but it is part of a habit and it is part of behaviour that will ultimately lead to further collisions. If you think it's okay sitting in traffic, you might think it's okay just checking it very briefly, just while you're on the motorway or something. But that split second, doing 60, 70, or as some people do, 80 plus miles an hour, that one split second of distraction can wreak havoc on dozens of other people's lives. So whilst this is not supposed to be a lecture, it's supposed to be a positive video, just to encourage you to drive without distractions, without using your phone, and of course, reminder of the stick. If you do those things and you ignore those warnings, you end up with 6 points on your license, fines, and quite possibly a driving ban. And just to explain the situation somewhat with the use of mobile phones, it is the use of any device that is capable of communication, regardless of whether those communication functions are active or not at that time. The use of any device, any mobile device that must be handheld, and it can be for pretty much anything, including checking the time, illuminating the screen even, let alone sending messages and browsing on Instagram or whatever your choice of social media platform is these days. So any of those things are going to end up being reported as a mobile phone use, and if it can be shown that you were using it, then you're likely to be convicted. So leave it in the cradle at the very least, but ideally don't even touch it. Just leave it there. Even most apps these days will say, don't use the app while driving, which I think is a good thing. So let's leave it in the cradle. As I said, forgive me if this comes across as a lecture. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be positive, but also some education at the same time. So I hope you found that interesting and useful. Please do like the video and subscribe. So please don't shoot the messenger. I'm here to explain how this works, why it happens, and ultimately help you all to drive more safely. So please do subscribe, and I'll see you next time.